So dear students, today our topic is formed elements are also known as blood cells. So already you know regarding the composition of blood. So blood mainly consists of plasma and formed elements. So plasma consists of various organic, inorganic enzymes, electrolytes, so like that. So other part that should be the formed elements are also known as the blood cells. So the formed elements, so they are present in the blood, so mainly three types, that is the RBC are also known as the erythrocytes. So these RBC important role in the so next one is regarding that is the red blood cells. So these cells are also known as erythrocytes. So here erythro means red and cytes means cells. So these cells look like a so red in color. So that's why so these are known as the red blood cells or RBC or erythrocytes. So the structure, so they look like a biconchave. So due to biconchave, so easily the oxygen enter inside the cells and as well as the oxygen can exist from the RBC. So due to the shape of the RBC, it was beneficial for entry of oxygen inside the RBC at the site of the alveoli or at the site of the lungs, as well as the exist of the oxygen, okay, from RBC to the different metabolic cells or tissue for various metabolic purpose or respirations of the cell purpose. So that's why the biconchave nature of the RBC is one of the beneficial for penetrations of the oxygens. So RBC, so they do not have any nucleus. So that's why, so these are known as the non-nucleated cells. Okay, so due to lack of nucleus, so that empty space is helpful for the filling of the oxygens, or it consists of the hemoglobin. So that hemoglobin nothing but it is having the two parts, that is the globin is protein and as well as non-protein called ferrous or heme. Okay, so that empty space due to lack of nucleus, so that was filled with the hemoglobin, and hemoglobin it's play important role in the to occupy the oxygen and transport from one place to the another place, and remaining 5% of the RBC cytoplasma, it consists of the enzymes, salts and other proteins. And RBC, so they do not contain DNA because so there is no nucleus. Okay, so lack of nucleus, the DNA do not present because you already know. So the DNA, so they are mainly present in the nucleus. So along with the chromosomes or message by the nucleus or nucleoles, so they are involved in the to take the decisions regarding the protein synthesis. But the DNA is absent, and as well as the mitochondria is do not present in the RBC. It means in RBC the ATP do not store. Okay, but the RBC can synthesize the ATP by glycolysis directly and aerobically. Okay, without oxygen, the RBC is involved in the synthesis of the ATP due to lack of the mitochondria, because the mitochondria is a site for glycolysis or breakdown of the glucose in each and every cells, and RBC is also cells. If the mitochondria is present in RBC means, so RBC is also involved in the glycolysis aerobically, that is the presence of the oxygen. So whatever oxygen is present in the RBC, so that was utilized for the glycolysis. But the God the made, so the in the RBC, so there is no mitochondria. So due to lack of mitochondria, RBC also synthesizes its ATP for regular normal functionings. But that ATP was synthesized anaerobically. That is the absence of the oxygens. So that's why the RBC is easily ruptures your lack of the exercise, or in your body the detoxification process do not occurs properly or normally, because if the any glucose molecule, if it is undergo glycolysis or breakdown or metabolism in the absence of oxygen means it can produces the lactic acids. So that lactic acid is responsible for to cause the acidosis. So due to acidosis, the all the cells functions are abnormal or the necrosis of cells is occurs. So that's why always you should be involved in the exercise, and during the exercise always the sweating should be occurs. So that is any aerobic exercise or hard exercise only the sweating is occurs. So that process or sweating during the exercise was helpful for the removal of the waste material. So that process was known as the detoxifications. Or certain healthy diet or green vegetables, so they are also involved in the detoxifications. So those are regularly exercise. So those are having the green vegetable in their diet, or as well as having the healthy diet or balanced diet. So then they are free from the any oxidation process, because so where the RBCs was healthy, so whatever the lactic acid was processed, so that was removed. So that's why always you concentrate if you want to healthy, because so our oxygen level in our body, so that was depending upon the conditions of the RBC, because so RBC is the only one cells is there, so they are involved in the transport of the oxygen from lungs to the different part of the body, and our brain continuously it can require the oxygen along with the glucose. Okay, so due to that only the brain can be refreshed, so brain can be active. So then it was involved in the balancing of the internal environment, so that was known as the homeostasis or homeostasis. Okay, homeostasis and homeostasis is one of the important process in our body. If it is alter means, so then we are suffering from the disorders, or we are suffering from the cancer, or we are suffering from the diabetes mellitus. Okay, but the that homeostasis or homeostasis is mainly depending upon the conditions of the brain. If the brain is healthy means, then all the internal environment should be the balanced. Then the brain function is mainly depending upon the glucose and oxygen, and oxygen supplied to the brain is mainly depending upon the RBC. If the RBCs are healthy means, then every organ function was healthy, then every person, so they are free from the various kind of the disorder. If the RBCs or if the oxygen is deprivation, then only the people they are suffering from the various chronic disorders. So that's why, so those people, so they are living in the rural area, or so they are living in the healthy environment as compared to the people, so they are living in the city. So that's why, so the city people always having the various disorders, but our farmers, so they do not have that much of the disease as compared to the those people they are living in the urban area or in the city area, because these rural area people they having the healthy environment, they having the good oxygen concentration, so there is lack of the environmental pollutions. So that's why, so their RBCs are healthy and they are healthy. So that's why, so here the RBC, so they having the lack of mitochondria and lack of DNA, then the RBC they synthesize own ATP from the anaerobically. Okay, so and also in the RBC the Golgi apparatus is absent. Okay, so that Golgi apparatus or Golgi complex, it is mainly involved in the packaging of the protein materials. Okay, packaging of the and labeling of the substances, but there is no DNA. If the DNA is not present means, so there is no protein can synthesize in the RBC. So that's why there is no need of the Golgi apparatus. And also the RBC do not containing the insulin receptors. Okay, insulin receptor, so these are nothing but these are made up of the peripheral or internal protein, so they are present in the each and every healthy cells. Okay, so this insulin receptor it can provide the place for binding to the insulin. Okay, so insulin it is a hormone or it is endocrine hormone, and it is synthesized from the pancreas. So when our blood sugar level is more than normal, okay, if your blood sugar level is more than normal, so then due to that it can give the signal to the pancreatic gland. Then pancreatic gland it was involved in the secretions of the insulin, so that released insulin it acts on the insulin receptor, so those are present on the cells. So here insulin can be bind, then it can open the GLUT4 receptors. Okay, so due to opening of GLUT receptor, then only the glucose can enter from extracellular fluid into the intracellular fluid. Okay, so that entered glucose. Okay, so due to that, the increased the glucose level can be decreased. So like that, the insulin receptors play important role in the regulations of the blood sugar level. Okay, but in RBC, So there is no insulin receptors are present. Okay, so directly the glucose can enter inside the RBC, outside the RBC. Okay, so that's why. So during the diabetes mellitus, so are those people they are suffering from the diabetes mellitus or high sugar level or uncontrolled blood sugar level. So their RBC function should be the abnormal. So they having the problem in the oxygen supply. So that's why. So those people, so they are suffering from the DM or diabetes mellitus. So same people also suffering from the other disorders like asthma, hypertension, many other disorders are there. So that's why the diabetes mellitus is known as the mother of disease. So where the mother go, so their children easily go to that home also. That is the relatives' homes. So that's why here, because of lack of insulin receptor, if the sugar level is uncontrolled, then it can easily affect the normal physiology of the RBC. So that's why, so those are diabetic patients, or if any your family members or neighbor or your patients, if they are diabetes mellitus means, so always you can insist to them they should be have the balanced blood sugar level. Otherwise diabetes is also there, along with other diseases also they are will be the suffer in the future. So that's why there is a important point for the all the family candidates. So those people or those patients they will be the suffering from the diabetes mellitus, from which you should be always insist to them or guide to them always they maintain better sugar level, that is the blood sugar levels. So that's why, so they are free from the other disorder. Otherwise if it is uncontrolled means still the therapy is present, still they will be suffering from the other disorder due to lack of the insulin receptors or due to lack of uncontrolled entry of glucose and exist of glucose inside the RBC. But other cells, so they are having the insulin receptor, so that's why only in the presence of insulin, so that sugar can enter inside the cells. But for the case of RBC, there is no insulin receptor, so that's why glucose easily enter and exist from the RBC. So regarding the anatomy, okay, so RBCs, so they are biconcave or dumbbell like structure, then as well as circular and disc shaped. So these dumbbell are biconcave, so this center surfaces is helpful for the easily entry of oxygen and exit of the oxygen. So regarding the diameters, so an average diameter is 6.9 to 7.2 microns. So regarding thickness, in the center point the thickness should be, that is 0.8 to 1 micron, but in the end side or end of the RBC or circular side, okay, in the center it should be 0.8 to 1 micron, and the edge of the RBC cells, because RBCs are also circular, so that edge should be the 2.2 microns. So regarding the normal value, so an average RBCs are present in human beings are, that is 4 to 5.5 million cells per cubic millimeter of blood. Okay, if the RBC, if it is more than 5.5 millions, so that was known as the cancers or blood cancer. If the RBC value should be less than 4, so that condition was known as the anemia. But the RBC number, so they are vary from male to female or from infants to adult. So in the male, the RBC normal range should be the around 5 millions per cubic millimeter of blood, plus or minus 1 is okay. Okay, if it is 4 to 6 millions, within the 4 to 6 millions means, so then also it's the normal range. Then in the female it should be, that is the annual average is 4.5 millions per cubic millimeter of blood. In infants 6 to 7 millions per cubic millimeter of blood. Then in the fetus it should be 8 millions per cubic millimeters of blood, because in infants, in fetus the growth rate is more. Okay, so as the growth rate is more, so there is utilization of oxygen is also more, because oxygen is required for each and every metabolic process or biochemical process, so that was taken place inside the body. So that's why, so in the infants and in the fetus, so that RBC range should be 6 to 8 millions per cubic millimeter of blood as compared to the adult male and adult females. And between the adult male and female, the female always having the less RBCs as compared to the male, because, so first reason, there is an abnormal menstrual cycle. Okay, it is present in the few females. So due to abnormal menstrual cycle, the every month the blood loss can occur. So due to that, so they will be having the less RBC as compared to male. Then another is the lack of hormones. So female having estrogen and progesterone. So those estrogen and progesterone, they do not have any role in the synthesis of the blood cells. But male, so they will be having the testosterone. Okay, so that testosterone, it can stimulate the functions of the RBM, that is the red bone marrow. So due to stimulations of RBM functions, the productions of RBC will be the more in the male as compared to the female. So these are the few reasons where the female having a less RBC as compared to the male. So regarding the physiology, so already you know, so our body will be having the around 4 to 6 millions per cubic millimeter of blood. Okay, so then the RBC, it do not having any nucleus. Okay, so that nucleus or empty space, it can consist of the hemoglobins. Okay, so here each RBC, it consists of 280 millions molecule of hemoglobins. Okay, so within single RBC, we should be having the hemoglobin molecule around 280 millions. Okay, so hemoglobin, it can consist of the two part. One is the protein part and another is the non-protein part. This is the composition of the hemoglobin. So hemoglobin mainly consists of two part. One is the protein and another is the non-protein. Protein part, that is known as the globulins, and non-protein part, that is known as the heme. So this heme or ferrous play important role to occupy the oxygen molecule, and each hemoglobin molecule, so they can occupy the four molecule of oxygens. So with the help of the ferrous or heme, so that heme reversibly, it can complex with the four molecule of oxygen in the alveoli or in the lungs. Okay, so according to the partition coefficients or partial pressures, so then they reaches to the metabolic cells, so where, so that hemoglobin, it can releases the oxygen to the metabolic cells. Okay, so then here the RBC, so they can transport about 98% of oxygen. It should be more than 98. So the maximum or 98% of oxygen, so that can be transported with the help of the RBC or by binding with the hemoglobin. So that's why the each RBC, they should be consist of the 280 millions of molecule of the hemoglobin. Okay, and 98% of oxygen, so that was transported, so with the help of the RBC, and only 13% of carbon dioxide, so that was transported with the help of the RBC. And regarding the oxygen, so remaining 2% of the oxygen, so that can be transported in the dissolved form or dissolved in the plasma. Okay, regarding the carbon dioxide, so they will be transported as the bicarbonate, and composition is the other proteins, and 13%, so they will be transported with the help of by binding with the hemoglobin or with the help of the RBC. So regarding the lifespan of RBC, and an average lifespan of RBC is 120 days. So after 120 days, so those RBC, so they are removed from the circulations. Okay, site for formations in the intrauterine life or in the fetus. So the word the RBC, so they are formed in the spleen and liver up to 5 months of the fetus. So up to the 5 months of the fetus, the RBC was synthesized in the spleen and liver in the fetal life or in the intrauterus life, because so where or the up to 5 months, the bones are not well developed. So due to lack of development of bones in the fetus, up to 5th month, so there is no RBM is present or matured RBM is present. So due to that reason, so RBC in the fetal life, so they are synthesized in the spleen and as well as the liver. So up to 5 months, so the RBCs, so they are synthesized in the RBM, that is the red bone marrow. Even after birth and up to the death of that person, the RBCs are synthesized from the RBM. So after 120 days or after the structural changes of the RBC, so those RBCs, so they are removed from the circulations. Okay, so that is known as the destructions of the RBC. And here the RBC, so they are mainly destructed from the reticuloendothelial system. So this system is nothing but it is made of the cells. Okay, group of cells, it forms the one mesh like structure. So then the blood can transport it through the mesh. So those cells are irregular, so here only they are struck. and their damages. And this endothelial systems or reticular endothelial system is also known as the RES. So these systems mainly found in the liver and as well as the spleen. So after 120 days, or if the RBCs are abnormal, their shape can be abnormal, and those are removed from the circulations through a reticular endothelial system. So that system is present in the liver and as well spleen, and always so those cells or destructed cells was replaced so with the help of the new RBC cells. So those are synthesized in the red bone marrow. Okay, so due to restrictions of the RBC, so they are produces the hemoglobin and that is a heme. Okay, that is the heme as well as the proteins, that globulin. So that globulin once again that is reused for the synthesis of new hemoglobin molecule, and that ferrous is also that was reused for synthesis of the new hemoglobin molecules, and some globulin so that is involved in the formations of the plasma membrane. So like that, so after destructions of the RBC also, so those destructed components so they are helpful for the synthesis of the new RBCs. So regarding the functions, so RBC, so they are mainly play important role in the transport of oxygen from lungs to the different metabolic cells or tissue, and that is about 98% of oxygen so that was transported with the help of only RBC, and that oxygen is required for each and every biochemical reaction so that was occurs in our body. So what reaction is occurs in our body regarding synthesis of protein, enzymes, hormones, or any other substances or enzymes, so their synthesis is mainly depending upon the oxygen. If you are having the good content of hemoglobin means you will be having the good content of oxygen supply in your body. Then all hormones they are synthesized correctly. If having the lack of hemoglobin, then hormones do not synthesize properly. Then due to lack of hormone, maybe you are suffering from various types of the diseases, cancer or disorders. And the hemoglobin content in the female, it is always should be maintained around, so that should be the 14.5, okay, hemoglobin gram per deciliters. Otherwise if the lack of hemoglobin, then there is no oxygen can be supplied, then there is no properly estrogen progesterone war synthesized. So due to lack of estrogen in progesterone in the growing life, so that woman will be suffering from the infertility. So that's why you always maintain the good hemoglobin content in your body, okay, around 14s, okay, plus or minus 2 is okay. Otherwise your growth can be stunted, your growth can be retarded. Okay, so that also reflects on your brain development and as well as the other secondary sexual organ. So that's why there is chance of the infertility. And about 13% of carbon dioxide so that was removed with the help of the RBC from tissue to the lungs. And RBC is also play important role to maintain the blood pH. Okay, so the blood pH, it is mainly depending upon the presence of the proteins. So in the blood or in the plasma. So here the hemoglobin is a protein. It is also present in the blood. Okay, so due to presence of hemoglobin in the RBC, so the RBC it was involved in the to maintain the to regulate the acid base balance of the blood. Okay, so RBC is also helpful for the determinations of the blood groups. So blood groups they are mainly categorized into four types, that is the A, B, AB and O. So these blood group, so they are determined or identified with the help of the antigens. So those are present in the plasma membranes of the RBC. So RBC, it is also consist of the plasma membranes. So that plasma membrane is also made up of the glycoproteins and glycolipids. And here some glycolipids, so they are acts as the antigens. So the different antigens are there. Among them important are the A antigen, B antigen and H antigens. So with the help of these antigens, so those are present in the plasma membranes of the RBC, and those are helpful for the determinations of the different types of the blood groups in the human being. So that's why so the RBC is also play important role in the determinations of the blood groups. So next one is the RBC is also helpful for to maintain the viscosity of the blood. So as you know, the viscosity of the blood is 5 times greater than the water. So that's why the water easily exists from the blood vessels. Okay, but the blood they do not exist, or they do not easily leave from the blood vessels due to presence of the viscosity. If the viscosity is decreases means automatically the blood can infiltrate inside the tissues. So due to infiltrations of blood, so that blood can be clot. So due to clot of the blood in the particular organ, so that organ was fail. Okay, but our blood having the high viscosity as compared to the water due to presence of the proteins and presence of the RBC. So due to RBC presence in the blood and along with the proteins, the viscosity of the blood is 5 times greater than the water. So that's why, so there is no internal hemorrhage occurs. If your RBC number is decreases, so then automatically the infiltration of the blood is occurs. If it is infiltration in the brain is occurs means inside the brain the clot is formed. If the inside the brain tissue clot is formed means, so that person was suffering from the stroke or many other mental disorders. So that's why you should always having the good protein content in your blood along with good RBC numbers. Otherwise, the viscosity of blood is decreases and infiltration of the blood is taken place. If it is occurs in the brain means, so that brain part was fail. If the any brain part was fail means the particular part of the body can suffering from the paralysis or malfunctions of the organ. So that's why you should be always having the good protein content in your body and as well as good numbers of the RBC in your blood. Otherwise, our brain or many organ are fails due to internal hemorrhage or internal clottings. Okay, so that's why, so RBCs, so they are play important role in that to maintain the viscosity of the blood. So next one is the, so RBC is also play important role in the ionic balance like a ferrous, because the destructions of the RBC after 120 days in the reticulo endoreticular systems, those are present as spleen and liver, so they can release the ferrous. So that ferrous is helpful for the formations of the new molecule of the hemoglobin. So that's why RBC itself, it was involved in the to balancing of the ferrous level in our body or in the blood or in the RBM. Okay, so next one is RBC is also play important role in the formations of the certain pigments like bilirubin and biliverdin. So these bilirubin and biliverdin, so they are play important role in the metabolism and transports of the lipids. Okay, so from food to the our body. Okay, so that is the role of the bilirubin and bilirubin. So those bilirubin and bilirubin, so they are also formed in the large intestine with the help of the globulin. So that globulin was released from the destructions of RBC or destructions of the hemoglobin. So that was released globulin. So that globulin was responsible for formations of bilirubin and bilirubin, and these are the components of the bile. And bile play important role in the absorptions of the lipids or digestion metabolism of the fatty substances. So those are we are taken daily in the eating purpose. Okay, if the lack of bilirubin, whatever the your fat you are eaten, so that was does not digested or metabolized in the small intestine as well as in the large intestine. So that's why directly indirectly the RBCs, so they are involved in the metabolism or regulations of the lipids. Okay, last one. So RBC is also play important role in the regulations of the blood pressure, because from the RBC only certain chemicals are released due to when the blood pressure is increases. Okay, so those are easily stuck to the RBC. So then the RBC, it can release the protective hormones or protective chemical substance. So that was known as the nitric oxide. So this nitric oxide released from the RBC, and this nitric oxide, it can act on the blood vessels and it can dilate the blood vessels. That means it can increases the size of the blood vessels. So due to that, the blood pressure is decreases. So that's why, so RBC is also play important role in the regulations of the blood pressures by releasing the nitric oxide. So it is one of the blood chemicals. It is helpful for to relax the blood vessels or to increase the diameters of the blood vessels. So as the diameters of blood vessel increases, the blood pressure is decreases. So like that, so the RBC, it was play important role in the regulations of the blood pressure also. But the main function is it is involved in the transport of the oxygen. So next one is the WBC, are also known as the leukocytes. So here the leuco means white or colorless. So unlike RBC, the WBC they are consist of the nucleus, and these RBCs are colorless. So that's why, so they are that is the WBC is colorless. So that's why they are known as the white blood cells. So regarding the size of the WBC, so they are the larger than the RBC. But regarding the number, so they are less as compared to the RBC. Okay, the ratio should be, that is, if our body or blood having one WBC means against our body will be having the 600 cells of the RBC. But regarding the size of WBC is greater than the RBCs. Okay, so an average or blood is consist of 7,000 to 8,000 WBC per cubic millimeter of the blood. And unlike RBC, the WBC is also formed in the bone marrow. So regarding the lifespan of RBC is mainly depending upon the type of the WBC. But an and average, the lifespan of RBC is, that is the WBC is a 14 days. So after 14 days, so they are removed from the circulations. Okay, so regarding the main functions, so WBC, so they are mainly involved in the regulations of the immune system, or they give the protection against the infectious disease and foreign invaders. So regarding the classification of WBC, so the WBC, so they are mainly classified into two types on the basis of certain granules. So they are present in their cytoplasm. Few WBC, so they having the granules, okay, in their cytoplasma. So due to presence of granules, so those WBC are known as the granulocytes. And some WBC, see, they do not have the granules in their cytoplasma, and those WBC are known as the agranulocytes. Okay, so regarding the granulocytes, so once again, so they are sub-classified into three types on the basis of staining property of these granules. Some granules, so they can produce the color with the acidic dye, and such WBC are known as the eosinophil. Okay, some granules, so they are stained with the basic dye. Example is the methylene blue, and such WBCs are known as the basophils. And some WBC are granules present in the WBC, so they are stained with the both acidic dye and as well as basic dye, and such WBCs are known as the neutrophils. So like that, the granulocytes of WBC, so they are mainly sub-classified into three types: eosinophil, that is the stain with the eosin and look like a red and pink, and some are basophils, so they are stained with the methylene blue, so they look like a purple blue in the microscope, and some are stained with the both acidic dye as well as basic dye, so they look like a violet, and those are known as the neutrophils. So these are the different three types of the granulocytes. So regarding the agranulocytes, so they do not have any granules in the cytoplasma. Once again, so they are sub classified into two types, that is the monocytes and as well as the lymphocytes. So these monocytes, lymphocytes, so they are mainly involved in the defense mechanism. So regarding the granulocytes, so eosinophil, it is having the two lobe of the nucleus. You can see it in the picture. So it is having nucleus is made up of the biolobe. So and average diameter is 10 to 14 micron. And regarding the basophils, it is also biolobe. Its diameter is 8 to 10 microns, and it is a dye with the or stain with the methylene blue. And regarding the neutrophil, it consists of the 2 to 5 loops. Okay, so that's it's an average diameter of neutrophil is 10 to 12 micron. But regarding monocytes, lymphocytes, so they do not have any looped, but the nucleus is present in the monocytes as well as the lymphocytes. So and average diameters of monocytes is 14 to 18 microns, and the lymphocytes is 7 to 10 microns. So like that, the WC they are mainly classified into two types: granulocytes and agranulocytes, due to presence of granules in their cytoplasma. So regarding the functions of WBC, so eosinophil, it mainly consists of enzymes like peroxidase and as well as the heparinase. So that's why eosinophils is mainly it can use the protection against the parasite infections. So due to presence of eosinophil in our blood, we are free from the parasite infections. If the eosinophil number is decreases or the functions of eosinophil is decreases, then only we are suffering from the parasite infections. And the eosinophil, it is also involved in the detoxification process, that is removal of the toxins from our body. And eosinophil regarding the pathological variations, that is the with the help of the eosinophil count we can detect the asthma. So during the asthma, the eosinophil number is increases. You having the problem in the respirations, or you having the bronchospasm, then you can go for the count for the differential WBC count, or you can go for the count for eosinophil. If the eosinophil is number is increases and you having the problem in the respiration means, so that condition was known as the asthma. So with the help of the WBC or with the help of the that is the eosinophil, we can detect the asthma. And regarding the basophils, the basophils is mainly consist of contents like IgE, cytokines, protease, peroxidase, heparin, serotonin, and histamine. And these basophils are mainly involved in the healing process. So after injury, so these basophils, they are involved in the repairing of the damaged places or injury. So that's why the basophils, they are involved in the healing process. Regarding the pathological variations, so with the help of the basophil count, so we can diagnose the asthma and hypersensitivity reaction. If you're having the allergy, so then you can go for the count for basophils. If the basophil number is increased means, so that is the hypersensitivity reactions or asthma. Only eosinophil number is increases, so that was asthma. There is no allergic conditions. Okay, if the both eosinophil basophil numbers increases, then you having the problem in the respiratory tract. So that indicates, so you are having suffering from the allergy or hypersensitive reaction. So due to that, you are suffering from the skin disorder, asthma, urticaria, or many other condition. So like that, with the help of WBC, we can diagnose the various kind of the disorder or diseases. Regarding the neutrophil, so neutrophil, it mainly consists of the protease, peroxidase, proteinases, and neutrophil, they also undergo the respiratory burst if any invaders or microorganisms, so they enter in our body means where the neutrophils can be degraded or respiratory burst out. So due to respiratory burst out of neutrophil, so they can release the H2O2 or deficiency. Okay, so here the neutrophil, they are helpful for the destroy the microbes, and as well as, so they are involved in the phagocytosis, and as well as they can show the antibacterial activity. And regarding the monocytes,